Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chiamo Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, neye EGUA da, medende o girafo, kwesi ra nehmpata akan. Akwamumai maruka etifi mu o girafo, o giramai mu. Greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, people, many Africans, black people. Today is EGUA Day, Marketplace Day. My name is Ojirafo Kwesi Ra Nehmpata Akan, Ojirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America, within Ojiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning into the broadcast. We're opening up the chat room. If you have any questions or comments and you want to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you do not have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk. If you have a question or a comment on the phone line, simply hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. We typically have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have just returned to broadcasting after a number of months on hiatus as we were working on different projects, and we continue to work on those different projects, including we released 3 books over the past few months. We're also in the midst of working on our documentary film, Amarukafo Adebisa Ajumadi, African American Ancestral Divination Project. So we're going to talk about that at the latter part of the show. We've just started back broadcasting last week. We have 4 broadcasts typically on a weekly basis. We have on Joda Monday night, we have Akanfo Nanasom, Ancient Authentic Akan, Ancestral Religion, where we deal specifically with the Akan expression of ancestral religion in its authenticity, which takes us back to ancient Kanat, the ancient Kan land, which is a title of Nubia. Our people migrated from those regions a couple of thousand years ago after the fall of Kemet, reestablished ourselves in the western part of the continent of Afuraka, Afuraitkai, and reestablished the Kan or Kanat Empire, the Empire of Ghana. 1,000 years later, because of Muslim invasions, our people migrated. Some of our people migrated further south to the regions of contemporary Ghana and Ivory Coast and reestablished Akan civilization in those regions. Hundreds of years later, some of our people were taken from those regions and forced into North Central South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the Umusuo Kessie, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era. This is how Akan people ended up in North America and the Western Hemisphere. We've maintained our ancestral religious values through these forced migrations. The Akan tradition in Suriname and South America is called Winti. In Jamaica, it's called Obeya. In North America, the Akan ancestral religion is called Hoodoo, from the Akan term Undu, meaning medicine from roots, trees, plant life, and so forth. And it also means to become heavy with the spirits of the Abosom and Nananom Nsamanfo, the deities and ancestral spirits. So we were empowered and guided through our ancestral religious practice on the best means by which to wage war against the whites and their offspring through taking up metal armaments as well as fashioning and utilizing chemical and biological weapons of warfare. So we were able to force the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere through waging war against the whites and their offspring, empowered by our ancestral religious practices preserved in our blood circles. So we deal with that Akanfo Nanasom, ancient authentic Akan ancestral religion, on Jodan Monday nights. On Benada Tuesday nights, we have Ojira, which means purification. We deal with ancestral religion in general, not just the Akan expression, but ancestral religion in general, wherever our people have been forced to migrate, as well as our people living on the continent, or wherever we have migrated or have been forced to migrate anywhere in the world, we've maintained our ancestral religious practices. And as we said before, in the Western Hemisphere, through Hoodoo, which is our Akan tradition, Juju, which is the Yoruba tradition in North America, Wanga, which is the Ovambo part of the Gullah tradition in North America, Voodoo, which is the Ebe and Bone tradition in North America, and so forth, in Gengain, which is the Fang tradition in North America, the various traditions we have, we were empowered and guided to wage war against our enemies, force the end of enslavement, and establish independent sovereign settlements, towns, nations that we defended for hundreds of years. So this is what we deal with on Ojida. We purify concepts, understanding of ancestral religion in its various expressions. Ojida means purification. It also means to celebrate a ceremony of purification. In the ancient language of ancient Kanat and Kemet, as well as the Akan language today, Ojida has the same definition. We always talk about Ojida. Purification operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes our practice of ancestral religion. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religion, in essence, is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. Through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject, to repel, to hate, to repulse, in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions. So the ritual incorporation of divine law, the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. Purification, Ojida, operationalizes our ancestral religious practice. Through purification, we operationalize the process of ritually incorporating law and ritually restoring balance so that we can align every thought, intention, and action with divine order every moment of every day throughout the course of our lives. Our ancestral culture is the divine acceptance or the law, the love of order, and the divine rejection, hatred, repulsion of disorder and its purveyors. We seek to align every thought, intention, and action with divine order every moment of every day, and when we make legitimate mistakes, we have the ritual process wherein we can incorporate law and restore balance, those expansive and contractive poles, so that we can get back on track with regard to executing our function in creation and not creating disorder or sustaining disorder or tolerating disorder in the process. Excuse me. So that's what we deal with on Ojida Day with that broadcast. On Yauda Thursday nights, which is also Yada Abada, we have Amain Sim, Affairs of the Nation. We deal with specific issues confronting our people as an Oman, as a nation. The term Oman means nation. We reference ourselves as Ojida Mine, the purified Ojida Oman nation. Mine also means land of the setting sun, the west. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the western hemisphere are Ojida Mine, the purified nation in the land of the setting sun, the west. And Oman, a nation, is a living, breathing entity. It is a structure that's governed by specific abosom forces in creation, Orisha, Vodou, and so forth, just like your organs are entities that are governed by specific forces in creation. The cells, as children of that organizational structure or that organ structure, they support the functions of that organ, of that collective. We are cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people. We are part of specific organal structures, organizational structures, but also organ and organal structures. When we have been drawn by the Nananom Nsamampo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, to a specific region of the Earth Mother's body, and we coalesce in that region under their guidance, we interface with the unique expression of the abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, as they manifest in that region of the Earth Mother's body, and then we blend ancestral blood circles in that region under the direction of the abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, as they manifest in their unique expressions in that region, that blending of ancestral blood circles and pulling ancestresses and ancestors back into the womb in that unique collective, the unique blended collective in that unique region of the Earth Mother's body, then we have forged a locative identity, a unique identity as a group, as blood circles being blended in connection and in harmony with the abosom, the forces of nature that govern that region. We radiate at the frequency of that region of the Earth Mother that we have coalesced upon, taken in the plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth into our bodies, through medicine and food and so forth, and blending ancestral blood circles. We are a unique group of individuals in the Western Hemisphere with our own truth story, our own expression of an ancestral religion based on the nature of the Abosom, the Orisha who manifest here, and our blending of ancestral blood circles on this region of the Earth Mother. So we must approach our various issues with regard to us as an Oman, a nation, from a nationist perspective. We talk about Amaniye, nationism, the purification of nationalism. We use a nationist perspective, a nationism perspective, or nationist perspective. We understand the proper function, nature, and structure of an Oman, of a nation, a collective of individuals, blended ancestral blood circles governed by a specific abosom. There is no separation between ancestral religion and nation building, as well as nation defending, because there are deities of war and so forth, male and female, that empower us and guide us on the best means by which to structure and form and fashion weapons, metal armaments, as well as chemical and biological warfare to exterminate our enemies. The extermination of our enemies through warfare is part of divine order. So that is part of nationism, or Amaniye, and we deal with that in approaching our issues from a nationist perspective on Amain Sim Da, on Affairs of the Nations, that broadcast on Yauda Thursday nights. Tonight is Awukuda Wednesday, also called Akuada. We have EGUA, Marketplace Day. The term EGUA means marketplace. We have published our Okom Economic Development Model, which is an approach to economic development rooted in our ancestral religious values. We have specific values governed by the Abosom, the forces in nature that govern our natural cycles. And we live in harmony with that natural order, and we deal with nation building, nation building, restoration, and so forth. We have principal values of nation building, 7 principal values of nation building that are governed by the Abosom, that govern the 7 days of the week in all natural cycles. The solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week, which also govern our natural cycles. We have 7 principal values of nation building that correlate and align with those Abosom that govern those 7 days and those 7 solar, lunar, and planetary bodies. So every day of the week, we have an opportunity to align with one of those principal values of nation building, restoration. Economic development rooted in our ancestral religious values is an expression of that. And we call that Okom Economic Development Model. It's called Okom, which means hunger, but it also means possession. We talk about spirit possession and spirit possessions, but we also talk about material possession or material possession. There's a harmony between spirit possession and material possession, where we're talking about the building and sustenance of a nation so that we can serve our best interests. So this is what we deal with on EGUA Marketplace Day, and the particular information that we have tonight directly correlates with that. We often would interview people from the community who have Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit businesses, organizations, and institutions who are serving the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community in a positive capacity and whose ancestral religious values inform their service to the community. We have had a number of people come onto the show and share with us their business, their organization, their institution, their philosophy grounded in ancestral religion. You can download those broadcasts. We will have more businesses, organizations, and institutions coming onto the show who we will interview, and you can communicate with and call in and ask questions and support their businesses and so forth. Part of the Okom Economic Development Model is our operation we call Starve the Beast and Feed the Pride. That means on a weekly basis, we make a determination regarding what funds you would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then you starve the beast and feed the pride. You take those funds away from the white business and direct them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. We target one Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit business, organization, or institution per week for optimal capital infusion. So when you starve the beast and feed the pride and you take $10 you would have wasted at a white business like Walmart or 7-Eleven or Chipotle and direct it to the black business of the week, that's a transfer of $10 from the white business to the black business, where we're all on the same accord, 1,000 people engaging that process. That's $10,000 taken from white businesses, $10,000 of our hard-earned money taken away from white businesses and directed to a business organization or the institution of the week. One business receiving a $10,000 infusion of capital allows them to hire full-time employees within the course of 7 days permanently. It allows them to expand their products and services to us and serve us at a greater capacity. It's a win-win situation, as we always say. If we do not engage that process deliberately, consciously, then by default, we leave that $10,000 in the hands and the coffers of the whites and their offspring, our enemies, and we are financing our own oppression. If we do not deliberately and consciously make the effort to support our own businesses on a daily basis, then by default, we support our absolute enemies, which is self-destructive and foolish. We posted a note today on Facebook, a reflection: have you supported a black business today? We should ask that question every single day. The whites and their offspring don't have to ask that question because they're not attempting or conceiving of supporting a black business on any day. They support their own businesses, white Europeans, white Asians, white Hindus, white Hispanics, white Arabs, and so forth. The idea of spending 95% of their money in black businesses in black neighborhoods and only saving 5% of their spending power with themselves is out of the question. Our people are spending over 95% of the $1 trillion we receive outside of our community and leave the other 5%, the $50 billion plus dollars to spend amongst ourselves, but the $950 plus billion we give to our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring. Even if we look in a zip code in a poor black community, there are millions of dollars spent in a particular zip code just on the Powerball and the various forms of lottery, so-called games in the poorest zip codes. Yet those zip codes are talking about there's a unemployment issue. If people stopped playing the lottery alone and took those millions from that zip code and directed them to black grocery stores and so forth, there would be enough employment just from the lottery ticket sales being redirected, enough businesses to employ all the unemployed in the zip code. So we have the capacity to overcome this foolish mindset, but first we must be grounded in our ancestral culture, our values, what we recognize to be important, necessary, essential to our development and our defense, and then employ that knowledge towards supporting one another. Ancestral culture, ancestral religion helps us to realign ourselves, and then we are automatically aligned with this notion of supporting one another. You don't have to be taught that when you restore your values by engaging your ritual practice. The broadcast tonight, the subject matter, HEDJU Ne Antiu, Frankincense and Myrrh, Ausar and Het Heru in Uauti in Venus, is directly related to this notion of EGUA marketplace, because frankincense and myrrh, or HEDJU Ne Antiu, a major commodity being traded in ancient Kanat, ancient Ta'aku, ancient Punt, and so forth, through ancient Kemet and so forth. So our people were utilizing these material possessions for trade and commerce, but they were also utilizing them as spiritual possessions. So the material possession facilitated spirit possession through ritual. And this is what we're going to get into. So when you look at our blog, and there's a link, we'll place the link in the chat room to our WordPress blog. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just place the link to the PDF, because when you go to the WordPress blog where we posted this article, the article itself, the blog itself, gives a portion of the article, and then it gives you a link to the full PDF, 8-page PDF article. So we just posted that in the chat room so you can check it out and read along as we go through the information. And as we're pulling this information up, as we said earlier, if you have a question or a comment on the phone line, hit the number 1. If you need to interact in the chat room, you must log in with the username in the chat room. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk. And as we go forward, as we said, we posted that note on Facebook. We said, reflection, did you support a black business today? If not, purchase from the links below. One of the initiatives that we have put forward, we started last January. We can talk about this now, announce this in the beginning of the show, and then at the end of the show we'll mention it as well. We're working on our first documentary film, Amarukafo Adebisa Ajumadi, African American Ancestral Divination Project. We started the crowdfunding effort back in January. We talked about last night in the broadcast that we ran into a roadblock. We had over $4,000 that we were receiving from a tax refund that we would use to garner the resources for the rest of the funding of the film. There was a tax offset, so we lost that $4,000 the first time ever that happened to us. So we had to begin to recover that. We have the crowdfunding effort. We reached 45% of our crowdfunding effort over the past 11 months with 90 contributors, and some have contributed more than once within that group of 90 people. We've had a number of people who contributed once, twice, 3 times, some even 5 times over the past 11 months. But we have thousands of people on our Facebook friends list and nearly 1,000 people on Instagram and over 4,000 people subscribing to our channel. So we can reach the other 55% literally in one day. 100 people or 200 people out of the thousands and thousands that we have within one day, we could actually reach our funding goals so we can complete the film and release it. We're talking about those forms of divination that were maintained in our blood circles here in North America for the past 300 years in Hoodoo, Akan tradition, Juju, Yoruba tradition, Voodoo, the Ebe and Phone tradition, Wanga, the Ovambo, Gullah tradition, Ngangai, the Fang tradition, and the 4 sisters, as well as myself, will be telling our different stories with regard to the divination practices born of the blood circles of our families that we have maintained, and we'll be going through the true story of how we waged war, freed ourselves from enslavement, powered by our ancestral religious practices, inclusive and focused on Adebisa or divination. When you go to our site, if you would like to support it, if you've not supported a black business today yet, this is one way that you can do so. Of course, we have 29 books that we have published. They range between $8 and $11. If you would like to receive one or more of those books in return for your donation, of course, you can post that in the comments section. We just posted the link in the chat room and so forth. So this is a way that if you have not supported a black business, you can take 2 or 3 minutes just to go and support our crowdfund. And we say, Yerase, we thank you for the support because we would like to get this film out and get it out there widely so our people can begin to recalibrate themselves to our ancestral religious culture. Now, going through this document, HEDJU Ne Antiu, Frankincense and Myrrh, Ausar and Het Heru in Uauti, the planet Venus. The sacred resins, HEDJU and Antiu, called frankincense and myrrh, are ancient and have been used by Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, Africans, black people, for thousands of years. Because of the fictional stories found within the Bible and their related fictional characters, fictional cartoon characters who never existed, including Jesus, Yeshua ben Pandera, Abraham, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Muhammad, all these different characters, fictional cartoon characters who did not exist of any race or in any form whatsoever. Now, we have proven this conclusively in our book, Kuku Tuntum, The Ancestral Jurisdiction. So you can get that detailed information about the fictional cartoon character Muhammad, Yeshua, Isa, Jesus, Yeshua ben Pandera, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, David, all of these fictional characters, as well as Buddha and Brahman and so forth. But because of the fictional stories found within the Bible and the fictional characters, some have put forth the false notion that frankincense and myrrh were introduced to Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa by the whites and their offspring. Moreover, some have falsely posited that the combination of the two resins in ritual is misguided. In reality, there is a cosmological foundation for the use of HEDJU and Antiu, frankincense, and myrrh, inclusive of their combined ritual use. This is based upon the major Ntoro and Ntorot, mispronounced Neter and Netert, but Ntorot, the major god and goddess divinities who govern these resins in a specific capacity. And we're talking about Ausar and Het Heru. In the image that you see in the article and the same image used for the show, to promote the show, what you see is the Ntorot, the Abosom, the Orisha, Het Heru, the goddess Het Heru. She is also called Oshun in the Yoruba tradition. She's called Cheche in Akan, as well as Afi in Akan. She's called Azili and Izuli in the Vodun tradition. You see in this image, she is shown in her red garment. And the Ntoro, the divinity, the deity, the god Ausar, who is called Awusi in Akan, he's called Obatala and Orishanla in the Yoruba tradition. He's called Dangbe in Vodun. He's called Agwu Isi in the Igbo tradition. Ausar, you see him sitting here in his white garment, and they're seated upon their throne. Het Heru in the red garment, Ausar in the white garment. We also have the planet Uauti, which is Venus in this image. Underneath Het Heru and Ausar in this image are the resins, HEDJU and Antiu, frankincense and myrrh. We also have an image of a worker in this image from the reign of the Henut, the queen Hatshepsut, with trees believed to be the HEDJU and Antiu trees, the frankincense and myrrh trees, brought back from her famous expedition to the land of Punt. The land of Punt, the Puanit, has been shown to be the region of Eritrea and parts of southeast Sudan and northeast Ethiopia. At different times, its borders could extend into Somalia, but primarily it's the region of Eritrea, Sudan, southeast Sudan, and northeast Ethiopia. It is from this region that the sacred frankincense and myrrh trees were imported to ancient Kemet. The pure Antiu, or myrrh, takes on a reddish color, while the pure HEDJU, the frankincense, takes on a whitish color. However, when being transported the grinding of the HEDJU resins, the frankincense resins creates dust, which settles upon the resins, giving it a sometimes whitish/yellowish tint. But the original color is more of a whitish color. Now, the general term for incense in Kemet is Sa Ntoro. Sa Ntoro is comprised of two terms. The first term, Sa, which means to make or to cause it to make. Ntoro means deity. The term Neter is Ntoro. It's vocalized in the Akan tradition. It's vocalized in ancient Kemet. You find it in different languages across the continent. The whites and their offspring did not know the vocalization, so they would stick E's between the consonants when they didn't know what the proper vocal language and spoken. That term is used every single day amongst Akan people. Sa Ntoro means to make or cause to be Ntoro divine. Why is incense called Sa Ntoro, and a material or a substance that causes something to be divine or makes something divine or divinizes something? With the Abosom, which are the deities, the Ntoru, Ntorotu, so-called Neteru, Netutu, of the Orisha, the Vodou, the Abosom, as they're called in Akan, the term for deities, when the Abosom are invoked ritually, and the smoke of the resins are directed towards the ritual states, or statues, the ritual states, but also the statues, shrines, individuals, etc. It is purificatory. Moreover, when the spirit lighting occurs, spirit alighting, meaning a spirit coming down, alighting upon the head of the individual, taking up residence, spirit possession, when that spirit alighting occurs, the smoke will respond to the form of the spirit which is manifested in the space, illuminating and describing the spirit's form. people who have had that experience of invoking one of the Abosom, Orisha, Vodou, and so forth, or one of the Nananom Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses or ancestors, the Ekungun, the Kuvito, and so forth, and the spirit manifests in the ritual space so that you can see him or her. When the smoke of the resins moves towards that form, that spirit body form, power. It has an aura, it has an electricity, electromagnetism. And the smoke describes the form and surrounds the form and gives form to that spirit that is manifested. The Sa'un Toro gives an energetic body to the spirit. The incense gives an energetic body to the spirit of an ancestor, ancestress, or divinity in ritual for us to temporarily see and interface with. So people who, especially for those who are not clairvoyant and could not see the spirit at the shrine, sitting at the shrine or standing in front of the shrine or moving through the space, when that Sa'un Toro, or the smoke of the incense, moves towards that spirit, the smoke shifts and responds to the energetic body of the spirit and describes its form, illuminates its form for those who are not clairvoyant. Plant life, animal life, and mineral life are shrines which resonate at the frequency of the Abosom, the divinities, the Orisha, the Vodou, who govern them, provoking the energy of animal totems, plant totems, mineral totems, as well as human totems. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only, of course, via spirit possession, meaning being mounted by a deity, that allows us to communicate with the Abosom through these living shrines. Whether you have an animal totem, which is a magnet or a vessel for a specific divinity that resonates at the frequency of a divinity, like the hawk or the falcon for Heru, or the sacred Kait, the cow for Het Heru, and so forth. In some respects, the Ka, the bull for Ausar, and so forth. When you have these animal totems, their energy resonates at the frequency of the divinity, so they are sacred to the divinity, and they will animate and place their energy within that animal totem. So when they send that animal totem to us, whether it's a bull or cow, whether it's a lion or a crow, or a snake or an insect like a dragonfly, as we talked about the Ajane Su in one of our articles, when the Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, when the Abosom, the deities, send these animal totems, they carry the energy of the divinity so that we can be fed from that energy and align with that consciousness. The same thing with plant totems, the same thing with mineral totems, the same thing with human beings who become possessed by the spirits of the Abosom and Nsamanfo. They become living shrines for the Abosom and Nsamanfo who take up residence within them so the deities can possess them, speak through their bodies, lay hands on people, heal, communicate with the community through the agency of that person who's become their vessel. Now, the Abosom, the deities, are the divine spirit forces in creation. They are the embodiments of divine order regulating all of creation. They are literally the organs within the great divine body of Amenet and Amen, Nyamewa, Nyame, the Supreme Being. And they regulate order within the great divine body. They are smaller bodies, organs within the great divine body. Literally. When we seek to align ourselves or realign ourselves with divine order, we do so through invoking the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, the Ntoro to the deities, because they are the embodiments of order in creation. So when you align with these forces in creation, you're aligning with the order manifest in creation. And then you can bring order to your life. We thus restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and therefore balance to our lives when imbalance has manifested once we invoke the embodiments of order, communicate with them through spirit possession or communication, receive their dispensation of energy, purify ourselves, we recalibrate ourselves, and realign our thoughts, intentions, and actions with that order. One of the titles of Het Heru, one of the major female Abosom deities, one of her titles is the Lady of Myrrh. One of the titles of Ausar is the White Clothed One, referencing mummification. In this capacity, Ausar is also associated with frankincense. In the text of Ramessu III, so-called Ramses III. The white incense mentioned, the HEDJU, is the white resin of frankincense. Het Heru governs the sensual attraction, sensual activity, which is the precursor to procreative activity and the replenishment of its harmony, pleasure. She governs the union of the Afurakani man and Afuraitkaitnut woman. We've talked about that fusion of the Afurakani male, Afuraitkaitnut female, fusion of complementary opposites, us coming together, that sensual attraction, the precursor to procreative activity, sexual activity. That sensual attraction is governed by Het Heru. She brings us together in harmony and balance. She fuses complementary opposites through copulation. There's a fusion of the sperm and ovum cells, a fusion of complementary opposites once again. That fusion allows an ancestral spirit to fuse or take up residence within that newly formed zygote and so forth. That fusion once again, that conception. So Het Heru governs that energetic process. The union of the Afurakani man, Afuraitkaitnut woman, marriage, copulation, conception, and the beginning stages of gestation. Het Heru, of course, only fuses together complementary opposites in harmony with divine order. She just doesn't pull anybody or anything together. Complementary opposites only, and then in harmony with divine order. So Afurakani men and Afuraitkaitnut women only, in balanced, complementary opposite relationships. There's no dissexuality, homosexuality that is insane, hated, rejected by the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, by divine order. There's no union or interracial coupling that is rejected by the Abosom, the forces of divine order. We do not copulate or connect with white Europeans, white Americans, white Asians, white Hindus, white Hispanics, white Latinos, white pseudo-Native Americans who are just migrant Asian invaders. The Afurakani man and Afuraitkaitnut woman are the only ones who can complement one another, because we are spirits of order. We are spirits that have a ka, a soul, a divine consciousness, a divinity dwelling in the head region. The whites and their offspring do not have that. They incarnate as spirits of disorder without exception, and they will continue to incarnate as spirits of disorder until we make them extinct, until they no longer exist. So she does not govern interracialism, nor dissexuality, homosexuality, which are deviations from divine order. Het Heru only fuses together complementary opposites in harmony with divine order. That is the Afurakani man, Afuraitkaitnut woman, who should be together, fusing those complementary opposites. Now, the physical shrine of Het Heru within the Afuraitkaitnut African female body is the fallopian tube structure. That is where the fusion, where she already fused the Afurakani male and female together. Afurakani male, Afuraitkaitnut female. She put us in position along with the Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors, so that we would cross paths, so that we would meet and connect. We're drawn together. Then we are drawn together through marriage, that fusion, that bonding. Then we're drawn together through copulation and the sensual attraction. That's the precursor to that. She governs that as well. Then the sperm cell and ovum, they're drawn together. She governs that drawing together as well, and that fusion as well, and that's the conception that takes place within her sanctuary, which is the fallopian tubes. The fallopian tubes are the het, the house of the head, the falcon, and so forth, that structure. Externally, so that's internally the fallopian tube structure. Externally, Het Heru governs the vulva and is thus called the Lady of the Vulva. That's the external structure which facilitates that external or physical fusion through copulation, which will lead to conception. Her title, Het, which means house, sanctuary of Heru, the falcon, the hawk, points to the internal shrine. It is within the fallopian tubes that conception takes place. The union of sperm and ovum, the newly formed zygote, is the falcon, hawk within the house. And you see that medut, that hieroglyph showing the hawk within a house, that ancestral spirit that will fly back into and take up residence in and reincarnate through that newly formed cycle. The spirit is now taking up residence within the house. Now, Ausar has a regulatory function in creation. He regulates the functions of the other abosom deities in creation. In this capacity, Ausar establishes order in the functioning of creation. The physical shrine of Ausar is the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the master gland, and of course the pineal works along with the pituitary, but the pineal is like an advisor, the vizier of the sovereign, which is the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the master gland, which through hormonal secretions regulates the functions of other glands. It is the master gland of the endocrine system. Just like Ausar is the master gland, or he's the sovereign, along with Aset, they're the sovereigns in creation, king and queen mother and so forth, regulating the functions of the other deities. The pituitary gland is a gland that has a regulatory function. Through hormonal secretions, it regulates the functioning of other glands within the body. That's why it's a master gland. While Ausar and Aset govern the posterior and anterior lobes of the pituitary gland, so they're up in the head region regulating order. This is why Ausar and Aset, Obatala and Ojua, Awusi and Ajua and so forth, are the abosom, Aguisi and Idemili in Igbo, and Dangbe and Minona in Bodun. This is why they are regulating the functions of the different abosom, Orisha, Vodou, Arusi, and so forth in creation, in the various cultures. Ausar and Aset in the physical body, their shrines in the upper region, the heavenly region of the physical body, the head region, is the posterior and anterior lobes of the pituitary gland, the master gland. So they work together in that fashion. However, Ausar also has a relationship with Het Heru. The pituitary gland secretes follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. These gonadotropic hormones are released by the pituitary gland into the bloodstream. Follicle-stimulating hormone is one of the hormones essential to pubertal development and the function of the women's ovaries. And talking about the follicle releasing the egg and so forth, the ovaries releasing the egg and so forth, that is facilitated through that release of follicle-stimulating hormone from the region of Ausar in the pituitary gland. Now there's a relationship to the ovaries and the fallopian tubes in the reproductive structure. This is the marriage or relationship or connection between Ausar and Het Heru within the physical body. This is the relationship, and it's in reference to procreation. Now, Ausar in the cosmology was killed, so in the image we show Ausar and Het Heru. We don't show, in this particular image for the show, and in the article, we don't show Ausar and Aset sitting together on the throne. We show Ausar and Het Heru sitting together on the throne. And this is why we're showing that, because they have a relationship in that capacity with regard to procreation. Ausar in the cosmology was killed and cut up into a number of pieces. However, Aset worked to reconstitute the body of Ausar. Now here's the key point. Unlike the false representation by the Greeks, who stated that the phallus of Ausar was lost and swallowed by the Oxyrhynchus fish and so forth, and Aset had to make him a new phallus and so forth in order to become impregnated. That's what the Greeks say in their text. But the actual text of Kemet states that the phallus of Ausar was found and reconstituted as part of his restored body with the other parts. And they talk about the different cities and sanctuaries in ancient Kemet where the different parts of the bodies were found, including the sanctuary where the phallus of Ausar was found, and shrines were built in each one of those cities or regions. This has always been part of the text of ancient Kemet. How many so-called speakers and teachers and elders and so-called babas and so forth who are promoting themselves as experts on quote-unquote Kemetic culture and so forth, have you heard over the years talk about the 14th part of the body of Ausar was the phallus and it was lost, and therefore Aset had to make a new phallus with sacred material so that she could become impregnated and give birth to Heru. They're repeating the Greek misrepresentation of the story, but if they looked at the actual text, that has never been true. All it takes is looking at the actual text. So they've been misinforming people because they've simply been regurgitating what the whites and their offspring have been saying. If you're engaged in ritual practice and you actually invoke Awusi, term for name for Ausar, invoke Obatala, invoke Dangbe, invoke Agu Isi, you would learn that directly from the divinity through spirit possession, through Adebisa, through divination and so forth. So when you come across something that says Ausar's phallus was severed and that was the 14th piece that was missing, Awusi himself, Ausar himself, will say, no, that is not accurate, and will direct you to information that proves otherwise. And you can look in the text of Kemet for that. So the key is, once restored, Auset performed ritual to resurrect the spirit of Ausar. His spirit came to Auset and impregnated her with their son Heru. Heru would grow to become the one who would restore order to creation by defeating Set and his followers. The restored phallus of Ausar, ritually reconstituted as a part of his mummified body by Auset, was therefore essential to the restoration of the world. Now, one of the reasons the Greeks misinterpreted that story is because they were looking at a popular tale back from the Middle Empire called the Tale of the Two Brothers. And in the Tale of the Two Brothers, Anpu and Bata, and you can download that story, it's a Middle Empire story, the Tale of the Two Brothers, Anpu and Bata. They're talking about two brothers who ended up in conflict, and one of the brothers became castrated, and his phallus was thrown in the river and swallowed by a fish. Now, that story mimicked certain aspects of the story of Ausar, Het Heru, but it was a totally different story. The Greeks mixed those two up, and in their presentation of Osiris and Isis and so forth, they misrepresented the cosmological story. We're not dependent on representations of a story and reading text for our religion. We learn about Ausar and Auset and Heru and Het Heru directly from them because they continue to possess our people at ritual on a regular basis for thousands of years into the Western Hemisphere. In the Hoodoo tradition, in the Juju tradition, in the Vodun tradition, in the Wanga tradition, the Grigori tradition, these different ancestral religious expressions in North America, we continually have been possessed by these Abosom, these Orisha Vodou, ever since we have been here. It was they who guided us towards the best means by which we need to wage war against the whites and our offspring and force it into enslavement. So we know exactly who these deities are. When we want to understand the cosmology, we communicate directly with the Abosom, and we get real answers instead of aping the misinformation of the whites and their offspring and then giving ourselves honorific titles that are absolutely meaningless and foolish while misinforming the people for decades. Now, the reconstituted body, mummified body of Ausar, this is essential to the restoration of the world. The restoration was called the Smai Taui, the union of the two lands, upper, southern, and lower northern Kemet. As we can see below, the red crown, and we show the image of the red crown, Deshert, and the white crown, Hedj, govern lower and upper Kemet respectively. When united, they govern the entire country. Heru, the son of Ausar and Auset, wears the unified red and white crown, the Pashent, the red and white crown united. Heru is a manifestation of balance and thus restores balance to creation. So we show an image of Heru, the body of a male, the head of a falcon, and he's wearing the unified white crown and red crown together as the Pashent crown. This represents the union of the two lands, equilibrating balance. As we can also see, the white crown penetrates the red crown. This is the union of the male and female procreative organs in the white seminal fluid and the red blood, which carry the sperm and ovum cells respectively. The union of the red and white in balance is foundational to reproduction. the union of the red and white crowns of ancient Kemet unified upper and lower Kemet, as well as Kemet and Kanat, Egypt and Nubia and so forth. But physiologically, internally, the union of the red and white, the red blood which carries the ovum, the white seminal fluid which carries the sperm, the union of red and white facilitates conception, reproduction, balance, and balance is essential. Now, the magnetic attraction of the Afurakani or African man and the Afuraitkaitnit African woman, which leads to marriage, copulation, conception, gestation, and ultimately the birth of a returned ancestor or ancestress, is mediated by the major shrine of Het Heru in nature, which is the planet Uauti, which the white star spring called Venus. In ancient Kemet, one of the titles, as we will see, as we show in the article, the Medusa, the hieroglyphs, is Uauti, while the Toro, the god Min, also called Amin Min, is the major male Toro, a divinity. He's shown with an erect phallus, constantly inseminating creation. He's called the great bull of heaven, Heru Kapet, and he's the husband of the great cow, Kaet of heaven, which is Het Heru, the union of Min and Het Heru, so-called Min and Hathor and so forth, Amin Min and Amin Miniwa and Akan, and Orisha Oko, and Oshun Ibu Dioko in the Yoruba tradition, and Erzuli and Azaka in the Vodun tradition. That's their regular relationship, Het Heru and Min. He is the major male force operating through the planet Uauti or Venus, while Het Heru is the major female force operating through that planet. However, in relation to that, he is the major male divinity. There is a specific role within this planetary shrine in nature for Awusi, Ausar. Min, the deity Min, sometimes called Amin Min, and Ausar function together within the planet Uauti, just as they function together in the body as the brain and spinal column, which is governed by Min, the central nervous system, the brain and spinal column, and the pituitary body, which is the shrine of Ausar in the body. So the pituitary body and the central nervous system, and of course the pituitary structure proceeds from the larger brain structure and so forth. There's a unity or a unified functioning of the pituitary gland, the pituitary body, and the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal column. That's governed by Amin Min. The pituitary body is governed by Ausar. In this capacity, that's within the physical body. Just as they work together harmoniously in the physical body, these two deities, spirits, also work together within the shrine of the planet Uauti, so-called Venus. We thus have important titles for the planet. So we show the Medutu here. One of the terms for star is Siu, S-I-U, Siu, which is a term for star. One of the titles of the deity Het Heru in ancient Kemet is Uauti. And as you see in the hieroglyphic dictionary, it says the name of Hathor, Het Heru. However, Siu, Uauti, means the star Uauti. That is a title of the planet Venus. So the planet Venus is called Uauti, the star Uauti, but Uauti is also a title of Het Heru. This is showing that Het Heru governs that planet. Another title of Venus, the planet Venus, however, is the Cha Benu Ausar, the vessel Cha of the Benu of Ausar. It's also called the Cha of the Aku or Ak of Ausar. So the planet is called Uauti, which is also a title of Het Heru. The planet is also called the vessel Cha of the Benu Ausar, as well as the vessel of the Aku, the illuminated spirit of Ausar. Here we have Ausar and Het Heru functioning together within the same planetary shrine or vessel. This reflects their working together within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African body in the process of conception. The sacred red and white hues of Antiu and HEDJU myrrh and frankincense reflect the energetic frequency they carry governed by these two divinities. They work together in the body. They work together in the planets, the same planets, with regard to procreation and development, innovation, fusion of complementary opposites, and so forth. And then you have the sacred red and white hues of Antiu and HEDJU, myrrh and frankincense, reflecting the energetic frequency they carry, which are governed by these two divinities. Notice that, remember, we had Het Heru in her red dress, Ausar in his white garment, Het Heru operating within the fallopian tube structure. So when the red fluid of the red crown carrying the ovum unites with the white fluid, the white crown carrying the sperm cell, that conception of the sperm and ovum, the red and white, takes place within the sanctuary of Het Heru, within the fallopian tube structure. That's where the conception takes place. But it can take place because of what happened with regard to the relationship between Ausar and Het Heru through the pituitary body and the releasing of follicle-stimulating hormones that stimulates the ovaries and the whole process of conception, as well as pubertal development. Now we go further. Notice that the spelling of Antiu, dealing with myrrh, includes the determinative symbol of the great vulture, which is also a determinative in the spelling of the praise name Nesi or Nhoso. They'll spell it Nesi, but it's really Nhoso or Nhesu. In Akan, it's Nhoso or Nkoso, a title of Het Heru in ancient Kemet. So we show Antiu, which means myrrh. But the determinative symbol of myrrh in one of the spellings is that great vulture, that great mother vulture. That great mother vulture, Nhesu or Nhosu, is a title of the Sudani Het Heru, the Sudani form of Het Heru, Nhoso. And in our book, Anidaho, we talked about the origin of the term Nhoso or Nkoso, which becomes Ngoso or Negasu in Ethiopia, and Negasu and Negus and Negasat and so forth. When people walk around talking about the term nigger, comes from negus, that's pure stupidity. It has no basis in reality. We prove in our book the etymological origin of the term naga, the etymological origin of the term negus, the etymological origin of the term nganga, and ganga, and so forth. None of those terms are the origin of the term nigger, nigga, nigger, none of that. And we also showed the etymological origin of the term negro, nigger, nigga, and so forth. And it comes from the term nek, neko, which is a term from ancient Kemet, which means foes or enemies who are crushed or beaten to death. So it's always been a derogatory term. But we show that when these fools are walking around talking about naga is the origin of the term nigger, totally inaccurate. Negus is the origin of the term nigger, totally pure stupidity, totally inaccurate. When they think that the term ganga and nganga is the origin of the term nigger because they misread the term ganga and two different terms put together as neg and nigor and nigger, because they saw that in the hieroglyphic dictionary and they didn't understand the pronunciations and the vocalizations. We show all of that in detail. But in the process of showing that Ngasu, which is Nkosu in Akan, Nkosu or Nhosu in ancient Kemet, becoming Ngasu or Negasu in Amharic and so forth, we show that it is a title, Nkosu, a title of the Sudani form of Het Heru. And you see that here. We show it here. That same great mother vulture, the Sudani or the Nubian Kanitu form of Het Heru, Nkosu, that same vulture is also a determinative for the term Antiu, which means myrrh. This is why you see the title of Het Heru called the Great Lady of Myrrh. We know myrrh is associated with Het Heru not only because of her title as the Great Lady of Myrrh, but even the term for myrrh, Antiu, includes the great vulture, which is a representation of the Sudani or the Kaniti form, the Nubian form of Het Heru, where the Antiu, the myrrh, actually comes from. Het Heru is called the Lady of the Vulva, we can see below that the phallus of Ausar is called HEDJU Cha, and we show that in the Medutu. This title references the Hedj, the white illumination, ray of light, posjet, from within the head, the cha. This is the release from the pituitary gland of the follicle-stimulating hormones from the head to the ovaries, Ausar to Het Heru. So we show HEDJU Cha, a name of the phallus of Ausar, showing the white illuminating power or energy manifest through the white fluid. We show the term Hedj, which means white, a resin from Punt. So in this hieroglyphic dictionary, the Vigus dictionary, this shows the HEDJU, which is a resin, and it has in parentheses from Punt to Puanit, talking about the region of eastern Sudan and south of Kemet, eastern Sudan, northern Ethiopia, and so forth. Hedj also means a plant with white leaves of flowers, white buds or seeds. Hedj meaning white linen or cloth. Hedj, of course, is the white crown. HEDJU is the white resin, which is the white frankincense. It's a title for the frankincense. And Hedj, Oro Posjetu Cha, is once again a name of the phallus of Ausar, associating him with that sacred white fluid and so forth. But then Het Heru is called Antiu, the great lady of Antiu, the great lady of Myrrh, connecting her to the red resin. We find these same associations in Akan cosmology. Those males born on Akwesida or Awusida or Sunday are governed by the abosom Awusir Ausar. Sunday-born males thus take on the Akradin or soul name Kwesi, which is Kwa Asi or Kwa Awusi, a servant or subject of the divinity Awusi, who's animating the sun on Sunday. So Kwesi or Akwesi or Kwasi and so forth is a child of the divinity Awusi, born on the day that upon which that solar orb animates and governs. Those females born on Fida, which is Friday, and Memenida, Saturday, are governed by the abosom Afi in Akan, which is derived from Fait, a title in Kemet of Het Heru, and also called Ameminiwa, which is a title of Het Heru in Akan. Ameminiwa comes from Minat. In ancient Kemet, a title of Het Heru, Minat or Minminit, it becomes Ameminiwa in Akan. Her title in ancient Kemet as Feet or Fait, talking about the great divinity, female divinity, holding up the western region of heaven. She's called Fait or Feet. This is why she's called Afi, Afia in Akan as well. So she has these two different titles, Afi or Afia in Akan from Fait in ancient Kemet. You see that great cow goddess sticking her head out of the western mountain range, the land of the setting sun, the gateway to the ancestral realm. And we talked about that in our broadcast, talking about Het Heru Nebet Amintet. She's the mistress of the ancestral realm, the land of the west, the gateway to the ancestral realm, the first divinity that you encounter when you spirit separates from the body and you go into the gateway into the ancestral realm is the goddess, the divinity of divine beauty, to help you recalibrate yourself with your new condition. So she's called Fait and Minminit or Minminat in ancient Kemet. She's called Afi and Amiminiwa in Akan, governing Fida and Memenida, Friday and Saturday, and the orbs, planet Venus as well as Saturn, governing these 2 days. She's also called Cheche in Akan, that's derived from Het Her in ancient Kemet. Friday-born females take on the Akradin or soul name Afia or Afur, while Saturday-born females take on the Akradin Amma or Ame or Amewa, Amit, Amemeniwa, born on that day. The interaction of Awusi, Ausar, and Afi or Amemeniwa births a creative expression, which is Het Heru, of regulatory order, which is Ausar. Het Heru governs creative expression, conception, and the generation of creative, innovative, artistic endeavor, and so forth. Ausar governs regulatory order. The union of Ausar and Het Heru, or Kwesi, or Afi, or Amma, a Sunday-born male, Saturday-born female, or Friday-born female, births a creative expression of regulatory order. Creative expression, Het Heru, of regulatory order, Ausar, for the expansion of creation in harmony with divine order. And Koso means to expand, to explore, and so forth. That's the title of Het Heru, adventure, exploration, new development, innovation, and so forth, expansion of creation, but in harmony with divine order, which is regulated by Ausar. This reality is manifest in the ancestral religious practices of the Akan in Ghana and Ivory Coast, as well as in HEDJU and Akan and ancestral religion in North America. The ritual use of HEDJU and Antiu, the white resin and the red resin, frankincense and myrrh, the sacred white and red resins, is an invocation of Ausar and Het Heru for harmonious, creative development in the context of regulatory order for the expansion of our clan's progeny, that's the procreative piece, and also our activities in the context of nation building. That's the regulatory order piece. That's Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people wherever we exist in the world. So let's say that again. When you have Ausar and Het Heru, the great white clothed one, great red clothed one. In the physical body, the white fluid carrying the sperm cell. That sperm cell is animated by a patriclan divinity. The red fluid carries the ovum cell. That ovum cell is animated by the matriclan female divinity. There's a fusion of the white fluid and red fluid, a fusion of the sperm and ovum, fusion which forms of zygote, and the ancestral spirit can take up residence in that zygote, bringing ancestor or ancestors back into the world. This is procreative activity. That's the union of Ausar and Het Heru in the body for procreativity, but it's in harmony with divine order. The fusion of complementary opposites for a creative expression of regulatory order, bringing an ancestor or ancestress back into the world to expand our progeny, expand the clan, but also to expand the development of the Oman, the nation, in harmony with divine order. The ritual use of HEDJU and Antiu, frankincense and myrrh, the sacred white and red resins, when you apply fire and release the creative potency of the Tumi, the divine power, or the, as we call it in Akan, or the Ashe as it's called in Yoruba, the Tumi or the Ashe of the Abosom of the Orisha. Once that Tumi is released and you absorb that power directed from Ausar and Het Heru, when you release that energy as you invoke them with the white and red resins, you're infused with that power through absorption, and you utilize that power to execute your function in creation, specifically with regard to a procreative and expansive expression of culture through the context of regulatory order. So we expand our clans physically, but we also expand our Oman, our nation, through a regulatory process, an ordered process. So the expansion of the clan and the expansion of the nation is in harmony with order. Invoking Ausar and Het Heru through these resins in combination, just like they function in combination in the body, the pituitary gland and the fallopian tubes, the union of the sperm and ovum through the white and the red crown, the fusion of the white and red crown, the balance of upper and lower Kemet, of Kemet and Kanat, and so forth. That fusion leads to procreative expression, and we say harmonious creative development in the context of regulatory order for the expansion of our clans, progeny, and also our activities in the context of Ancestral nation building, restoration. This is why we're invoking Ausar and Het Heru through the ritual use of the firing of these resins, these white and red resins, HEDJU and Antiu, for these purposes. Every ritual practice we engage in as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people is founded upon our direct experience with the Abosom, Orisha Vodu, Ntoru, Ntorotu, and so forth. This is true of ancestral religious expressions in Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, and those expressions in the Western Hemisphere. HEDJU, which is Akan, Juju, Yoruba, Voodoo, Ebefong, Wanga, which is Ovambo, Ngengai, Fang, Grigri, Bambara, and more. We show our Akradin Bosom book series where we go into detail about Ausar, Uauti, as well as Aset, EGUA, where that's parts 1 and 2 of that book series that have been released. Parts 3, 4, 5, and 6 are forthcoming. And then on the next page, we talk about and show the link to our Amarukapo Adibisa Ajumati, African American Ancestral Divination Project. So we're showcasing, as we said earlier, the traditions, the divinatory practices that we have maintained in our blood circles intergenerationally and transcarnationally through successive reincarnations over the past 300 years since we were forced into North America. We maintain these religious oracular traditions, and they have guided us towards healing practices, guided us towards waging war against the whites and their offspring. It was those who maintained their ancestral religious practices who took up arms and waged war against the whites and their offspring, defeated them, forced the Civil War to take place, and forced an end to enslavement, established independent nations even during slavery, like Dismal Swamp in Virginia and so forth. You had a collection of people who escaped into that area after waging war against the whites and their offspring, first escaping but then marching triumphantly into that area of the Dismal Swamp, establishing a nation, over a couple of thousand people living there in the 1700s and into the 1800s, free and defending the area. When the whites and their offspring sent their armies to Dismal Swamp to drag those people back into enslavement, they were met with the formidable Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit army. And we waged war, and we forced them to accept peace treaties, and the whites and their offspring started to try and trade with the people in Dismal Swamp because this was an independent nation. While other people were enslaved, those who maintained their ancestral religious practices freed themselves from enslavement, freed others, and established independent sovereign nations. And it wasn't just Dismal Swamp, it was all over the South. And then even after enslavement was forced to be over because we forced the Civil War. The Gullah Wars bankrupted the United States Treasury. The whites and their offspring sent the United States Army down into Florida and so forth to wage war against the Gullah, the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people who had maintained their ancestral religious practices. They engaged them in warfare over a period of a number of decades. Never drugged them back into enslavement. The Gullah Wars lasted for over 50 years. So it was because of the Gullah Wars which forced other people and empowered our people, but forced the whites and their offspring into a defensive posture. This is what led to the Civil War and the various uprisings and revolutions like that of Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner, Okunfo Kwabena, Denmark Vesey, and Nana Abena Aramisa, Harriet Tubman, and so forth, and various others. This is what forced the Civil War, and which forced the end of enslavement because our people were fighting all the way through. All of this information will be examined in detail, and we're talking about our ancestral religious practices of Hoodoo, Juju, Vodun, Wanga, and Gangan, and so forth. So this is the link to our crowdfund for our film. As we said earlier, we've reached 45% of the crowdfunding effort over the past 11 months with just 90 contributors. As we said earlier, if you have not supported a black business today, when we posted that note on Facebook, have you supported a black business today? We should ask that question every single day, because we could also ask the flip side, have you supported a white business today? Most of our people say, yes, I supported a white business today, but we can't say, I supported a black business today. Can we take the funds that we would have given to one of those white businesses where we bought a product like a donut or some Coca-Cola or whatever it is that we really didn't need, and redirect that to a black business, or getting some product that we did need from a white store that we could have went to a black store and got the same product, or received something from the black business that we didn't even realize that was beneficial to us. So if you have not supported a black business today is EGUA Day, Awuku Da Akua Da, governed by Awuku and Akua, which they are called Set and Nebet Het in Kemet. Eshu and Agberu, the wife of Eshu in the Yoruba tradition, Legba and Koni in Vodun. These male and female abosom govern media of exchange. They govern the communication, which is an exchange of information, sound vibrations, and energy, but they also govern offerings and media of exchange. Gold, other media of exchange that we use for money, cowrie shells, and so forth, but also sacred offerings. You see Eshu or Set or Anansi, Awuku, governing the communicative structure, carrying the messages of us, from us, to the Abosom, Nsamafu, the Supreme Being, and carry their messages back to us. From the spirit realm to the physical realm, he goes back and forth as a messenger. Nebet Het, with the vessel on her head, she's called Agberu, the wife of Eshu. Agberu means the load bearer, talking about the vessel on her head. She's called Akua in the Akan tradition. One of her praise names is Kukua, which means an earthen vessel. She's called Koni, the wife of Legba in Vodun. She's the courieress. She carries the offerings that we give to the Abosom and Nsamafo, the deities and ancestral spirits, and carries those offerings in her sacred vessel to the spirit realm. And once those offerings are given, then the dispensation of energy from the Abosom that we are invoking is projected towards us, so we can absorb that and utilize that to our benefit to align ourselves with order. So the messenger and the courieress govern media of exchange. This is why we have EGUA marketplace on Awukuda, Akuada Wednesday as opposed to any other day of the week, because this is the day that governs that kind of activity. So if you have not had a chance to support a black business today, you can take a minute right now and go to our fundraiser.com. If you would like to receive books in return for your donation, just let us know which books you would like. We have 29 books. You can pick a combination of those books, any combination you would like to support the work. As we said, we have over 4,300 subscribers on our YouTube channel, 5,000 friends on Facebook, nearly 1,000 followers on Instagram, and so forth. We've had, out of those thousands, we have about 4,000 people who download our books on a monthly basis, not even talking about the 100-plus articles, just the 29 books alone. We have over 4,000 downloads on average on a monthly basis of those books, because we've made all 29 of our books free downloads. The ebook versions are free. We sell the softcover versions, and we print them on our own printers in-house. We don't contract that out to white companies. We do that ourselves. But they range between $8 and $11. But for those who cannot afford the $8 to $11 price, we make the ebook versions, which are the full versions of all 29 books, free downloads on our website, because we can't hold our information hostage. It's too important for our people to have, so that you come into a situation where you are not working, you don't have any funds. We can't say that, well, since you don't have any funds, you're not working, you can't learn about your ancestral culture. We can't. That will be unconscionable, so we must make the books free. But then those who support the work and appreciate the work, then they can support by purchasing the softcover books. We also have the piece where people can become distributors. You can become employed immediately, notwithstanding your previous work history. We have a 35% off discount for those who become no quadifo distributors of our books. That way they purchase them for 35% off and sell them for full price. So, for example, the books that are $10, you purchase them for $6.50, 35% off each. And then, of course, you sell them for $10, and you make $3.50 per book. So people have already started that process. People who are out of work. When we talk about nation building, we're not just talking about philosophy. People should be able to come to those who are talking about nation building and say, do you have an option for the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community based on the work that you say that you're doing that can contribute to the development of our economy, our economic standing? We have that. We've published 29 books. We've put years into that study, influencing people, changing people's lives as far as diet and behavior, interactions with their family members and everything else, but also an economic foundation. You can begin to work immediately by becoming no quadifo, a distributor. That's our term for distributors of information, disseminating truth and so forth. And we have that option for our people. And, of course, our people only. So if you'd like to support that kind of work, take a couple of minutes now. Go to the before you forget, because social media pulls us in different directions and we'll forget. And people often tell us, we love the work you're doing. I'm going to support the work. And then you may 30 days later, 60 days later, say, oh, I forgot. Man, I'm going to support that work. Another month goes by, and you'll have people saying the same thing every 3 or 4 months. Because social media is moving so fast, we're always distracted. So while you're in that mindset now, go to the fundraiser page, support the work. I'll say we thank you for that. If you have any questions on the phone line, you can hit the number 1 so we can see that your hand is raised. We'll look in the chat room as well. So just want to make sure we didn't have there were no questions in the chat room. Okay. Now, we also mentioned in our previous broadcast about our Happy Merit hibernation training, cultural, and ritual retreat. And that retreat is taking place February 16th through the 19th, that weekend. Registration for that retreat had closed a couple of weeks ago. However, a few days ago, we have a couple of cancellations, last-minute cancellations. So that opened up 4 more spaces for people who would like to attend the retreat. Once one of those spaces was taken, so there are 3 spaces left now. If you would like to attend the retreat, go to the Happy Merit page on our website to register. We do have a payment plan for the $200 registration fee, which you can split that up. You'll see that on the site. You'll see all the details on the site. You'll see the video trailer for the retreat on the site. Once those 3 spaces are reserved, then registration will be closed once again. It only opened back up because there were a couple of cancellations. So they are first come, first serve. Whoever registers gets those spaces. We can't hold spaces and tell people we'll hold it for you, and just let other people know that they're taken, because we've done that in the past before, where we held spaces and then other people were turned away, and then when it was time for things to take place, the people who we held the spaces for, at the end of the day, they decided they weren't going to utilize the space. So then that was a missed opportunity for the people we had turned away. So whoever comes is first come, first serve for those last 3 spaces. You can go to the Happy Merit page right now to reserve those spaces. Okay, Michelle on the phone line, number 8162. You had a question or a comment?
What's up? I had 2 questions that were pretty off topic, if that's okay.
Okay, no problem.
All right. When I hear people who are into so-called New Age philosophy talk about the universe, it sounds more like they're describing electromagnetism when they say things like the universe doesn't hear what you say, it hears what you feel. And other times it seems like they're using the word synonymous with divinity. And so I was wondering if you could explain what the universe is in the true sense.
Okay, so yes, you will hear people spouting so-called New Age pseudo-spirituality and talking about the laws of attraction and things like that. Sometimes they're talking about astrology from a Eurocentric perspective. Of course, we found that process with the white and offspring have a truncated misinterpretation of that. When they're talking about the universe doesn't judge, and the universe is love, and the universe accepts all, and you put things out into the universe, and all they can talk about is a lower level experience of electromagnetism. For the whites and their offspring, the quote-unquote universe does not speak to them, does not quote-unquote communicate, because they are incapable of communicating with the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, the Arusi, the Ntorotu, the deities that animate the suns, moons, stars, black substance of space, the oceans, rivers, Earth Mother, core, atmosphere, these forces in nature that are all around us. Black people, we are cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, just like plant life, animal life, and mineral life. So they possess us. They communicate directly with us. We can feel them, we can see them, we can hear them, we can smell them, we communicate with them, and so forth. We receive direction from them. We are empowered by them. Our energy is replenished by them. Our consciousness is renewed by them. The whites and their offspring cannot communicate with them because they are spirits of disorder without Akayat. They have become the cancerous cells within the great divine body. And just like your cancerous cells within your body, which were once normal, become disfigured, and then they begin to attack and seek to consume the other cells. They're disfigured in form. They're disfigured in function. So they are separated, isolated, and slated for destruction, eradication, extermination, and expulsion from the body. They cannot communicate with the other cells and organs harmoniously. They don't have that communication anymore. They seek to destroy, and they're eradicated. You have two magnets on a table with the same polarities facing, and you place one close to the other, and it repels the magnet every single time. There's never a time where one magnet says, I've been repelling you for a very long time. I shouldn't have been doing that. Today I'm gonna embrace you. That never happens. The reality is that it's repelled. The whites and their offspring, as spirits of disorder, are repulsive to the forces that govern all of creation. So even if they were to pray and communicate and project ideas, thoughts, and desires, that projection of energy is repulsed, just like a magnet repulses another magnet, because their projections are a manifestation of the nature of their spirit, which is disorder. So disordered projections are repelled and destroyed, just like the disordered projections and exudations from cancer cells are isolated, neutralized, and destroyed by the immune and lymphatic system within the body, within the great divine body. Benna and Abena, Ogun and Iyami Abeni, Ogun Ananu, Herubedeti and Sechima Sekmet, the divine forces of divine hate, the rejection of disorder for the protection and maintenance of the integrity of divine order, the immune and lymphatic system in the great divine body and in our bodies. They repel the projections of the whites and their offspring, so they cannot communicate with any deity. They never have been, and they never will be until they become extinct. So that's the only way they can describe something, is based on their lack of communication. But they seek to make us believe that we cannot communicate, so they want us to believe that our communications never existed and are non-existent. And it was all about mythology, because they are inferior and they cannot communicate. So they build a whole pseudo-philosophy behind not being able to communicate. It's like someone who is blind coming up with a whole philosophy about if they're blind and they're a human being, then they come up with a philosophy that human beings can't see because they can't see. And then they try to convince all the human beings that can see, you never were able to see. You're all just like us. And if all the other human beings start closing their eyes and walking around with their eyes taped shut, trying to inferiorize themselves and operate like the blind individual, then the blind individual is controlling them. This is what's happening with the whites and their offspring. We have about a minute left in the broadcast online. If you want to listen beyond 11 o'clock, you must call in. If you do not call in before 11, then only the people on the phone will be able to hear. Number 646-787-8155, 646-787-8155. And we're not going to go too much longer beyond 11 o'clock. But this is the reason why the whites and their offspring put forth that foolish philosophy, a pseudo-philosophy. It's not because they really believe that. They know they are inferior. They know they are incapable of communicating, but they don't want us to understand that. So they want to dispossess us of our own power, and the only way they can do that is to get us to do that, because they can't do it themselves. They can't stop us from communicating. They have to make us believe that we shouldn't even try. So they give us fake little white deities or pseudo-philosophies like New Ageism, and then we truncate our own spiritual power and consciousness by embracing that foolishness. It's like putting a blindfold on and putting stoppers in the ears so that we can't see and we can't hear, and then operate like a blind and deaf individual so we can be on their level. But the universe in and of itself, the great body of the Supreme Being, the universe is the great body of Amenet and Amen, the black substance that permeates all of creation called Ka and Kayet in ancient Kemet, that black substance that contains all of everything that exists in creation. The white offspring, now called dark energy and dark matter. We know it's the expansive male force Ka and the contracted feminine force Kayet, who are deities that we can communicate with and they communicate with us. That is the great melanin substance within the great divine body of Amen and Amenet, just like we have melanin within which our organs are bathed. Within our body, we have melanin throughout our bodies. That black substance is throughout the body of the universe. Our melanin comes from the great black substance, ultimately in creation, within which all the suns, moons, and stars are floating, and so forth. But that is the melanin within the great divine body of Amenet and Amen. The universe itself is the body of Amenet and Amen. So that's what I would say for that. Okay.
One of the things that kind of confuses me a little bit with electromagnetism, we all emanate just by virtue of existing, right? We all have electromagnetic emanations. There have been times in my own experience, like when I've had a thought about something or like maybe a question, and it's been, like heavy on my mind or whatever, and the answer will end up coming through an Achiwadifo spirit or something that Achiwadifo spirit has to do. And I mean, it's not that I wanted
your voice was going in and out.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's better. So you said it would be answered by an Achiwadifo spirit, but you said what after that?
It's not that I wanted it to come through that way. I would have preferred it come through, our own people. But I couldn't explain why, with my understanding of how electromagnetism works, why is that on my, on my vibration?
Okay, so and that's a good question. So sometimes if you're contemplating on something and focusing on it intently, what you're doing is, number one, you're attuning to something you're trying to get an answer for, and when you're forming that in your ajuni, in your mind, in your spirit, then you begin to project that. And once you begin to project it, you project it. The earth has a magnetosphere. We talked about that last night. Your body has a magnetosphere. Plant life, animal life, mineral life, even inanimate objects, rocks, paper, everything, just by virtue of the fact that they have electrons and neutrons and protons and so forth, there's an electromagnetic field surrounding things. So when you project, these thoughts or these desires and so forth into the magnetic field, now it can travel through the magnetic field. Now, that's no different than talking into a cell phone, and then it's being projected through, the magnetic field of Earth ultimately, and picking up on another frequency. And if the cell phone is aligned to the same frequency, it can pick up that message and you can hear the message somewhere across the world. The magnetosphere is the same thing. So you can project things into the magnetosphere all the time. And somebody can be standing in between that projection. It's like somebody can, you can have crossed lines on your cell phone and you can hear somebody else's conversation. The magnetosphere in and of itself and communication via the magnetosphere is no different than you speaking and yelling something out, and the sound vibrations are traveling through space. And if somebody is in the vicinity, it's going to cause their eardrums to oscillate, and they're going to pick up those sound vibrations, and if they speak the language you speak, they know what you're saying. And they can respond to that. Just projecting sound vibrations or projecting ideas in and of itself, just because they're disembodied communications, meaning spiritual, they're non-physical. Sound waves are not physical things, and ideas are not physical things. They're non-physical, spiritual. Disembodied communication in and of itself is not spirituality. It's not divinity. It's just communication, no different than you speaking your voice, your sound vibrations. If somebody tuned into this broadcast right now, anywhere in the world, They hear the sound vibrations that are emanating from this apparatus, so they can hear it, and they could respond. So disembodied communication in and of itself does not constitute spirituality or religiosity. What constitutes spirituality or religiosity in the real sense is when you align that projection through your ba, and for females the ba'et, the divine living energy, to the ba or ba'et of a deity, and then the deity communicates with you and answers you or empowers you or possesses you or informs your communication. When you link your energy deliberately or instinctively to the energy of an abosom, an orisha, a vodou, and then you get a communication in that process, or through the agency of the Nananom Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors called Aku and Akutu in EGUA, or the Shepsu and Shepsutu in EGUA. When you communicate with the abosom through the agency of the Nsamanfo, within that divine structure, there's a dispensation of Tumi, divine power from the abosom, from the orisha, the vodou, and so forth, through the agency of the Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors, to their clan members, which are you, and there's a communication back from you through a feedback mechanism through the ancestresses and ancestors and the abosom to the Supreme Being. So that loop of communication, that disembodied communication constitutes ancestral religion, spirituality, religiosity. If the deities and ancestral spirits are not involved, disembodied communications devoid of a connection to the deities has nothing to do with spirituality at all. It's no different than a cell phone call or a blog talk radio broadcast. And whoever's in the vicinity can pick it up. And if they decide to respond, then they respond. And if they decide to respond trying to influence you to help you endear yourself to them because they responded to you, now this is an insidious parasite. So the whites and their offspring were like the KKK types. They show you exactly who the whites and their offspring are. They're doing you a favor by showing you up front who they are. They are spirits of disorder. The most insidious cracker is the one who will seek to endear you to him or her, to make you put down your immune system and embrace them by trying to respond to you or give you information or try to be quote-unquote nice or trying to endear you to him or her in some way. A cancer cell trying to latch on to you. A parasite needs a host, so they try to attach themselves to you, trying to suck the blood out of you. As soon as they attach themselves, now that disorder emanating from them, you become enveloped in that disorder yourself. And then when you come amongst your own people, then there's a discordance there. The cracker standing in between. And when you say, well, I'm embracing this cracker or their ideas and so forth, and your people are like, no, prior to the cracker showing up, you all were all in harmony. Everything was fine. When the cracker shows up, now there's a division because he or she has endeared him or herself to you artificially as a parasite seeking a host, and now there's a division or a divide created between you and the rest of your community. This is the only reason they seek to reach out, communicate, try to quote-unquote be nice. They are parasites seeking a host. So they're the most insidious type of cracker that you can come in contact with. That's the only reason they put forward any information. And even when they respond, it's always going to be through their own lens of disorder. So it's always going to be a mixed bag. Something might be true, which sets up a situation where you will be open to receive the disorder that regularly comes from them. So that's the dynamic.
Okay. I had one last question, if it's okay.
Okay.
Based on my understanding of the Ka'ed, it's a divinity that's assigned to us by the Supreme Being to guide us through life and is in and of itself incorruptible, right?
Right.
So what part of us becomes disconnected and controlled by lust and conditionings or influenced by Achuwadifo?
Okay, so in Akan, the term for spirit body is the Sum, and a person will be called a Sum, a spirit. So you're a Sum, you're a spirit that's operating through a home or a physical body. In HEDJU, the term Sum, the typical term is sahu, the spirit body. You're a spirit that operates through a physical body. And then when death occurs, the spirit separates from the physical body. Just like your body can become corrupt if you put certain foods in your body that shouldn't be in there. Normally your body, instinctively, you're drawn just like a lion or lioness or a hippopotamus or a giraffe. They're instinctively drawn to the kinds of plant life, animal life, and mineral life that, naturally serves them. And they go to that. They're drawn to it. They drink water. They go to a certain plant life or mineral life or animal life that they need to, and they consume that, and they maintain their lifestyle. If somebody comes along with something that smells like or kind of looks like the food that they normally would, the vegetation or the other substances they would normally consume, and they're drawn electromagnetically to that, then they could consume something that would destroy them. Your physical body can be pulled or lured, so to speak, through that electromagnetism to something that's similar but not exactly the same. In the same fashion, your spirit, you're consumed, you as an entity, you as a spirit, you're not fully developed unless you align every thought, intention, and action with the Ka, which is a deity that takes up residence in your head region. It's no different than a person sitting on your head, a divinity sitting on your head. You can communicate with that divinity because he or she is directed to dwell with you throughout the course of your life. If you consistently repel the direction of that divinity, they will separate from you and go back to the ancestral realm, the spirit realm, and then you're a spirit without a Ka or Kayat, and then you're subject to be pulled in all different directions. You become a spirit of disorder because you don't have that divinity anchoring you in order. But your spirit is like your physical body. It's naturally drawn to things that, empower it, because of the structure of your spirit coming from your mother and your father's side, the patriclan and matriclan energy that's fused together to make your unique spirit the kind of spirit that it is, and what you've been through in previous incarnations that forms the structure of your sum, your spirit body. But then you have a Ka or Kayat that's on top of the spirit body in the head region that regulates you. But your spirit body, you as an individual spirit, just like your physical body, you can be instinctively drawn to things that you need to be engaged in, behaviors, relationships, interfacing with plant life, animal life, mineral life, and other Afuraitkaitnut people in a harmonious fashion. But there is the potential for you to be drawn off track, electromagnetically pushed and pulled and prodded off track based on the interactions that you have with other individuals. The way we maintain ourselves being on track is to engage the ritual process to align with the deity that anchors us in order. If we don't engage that process, then the spirit body is similar to the physical body. While it has a natural instinct to be drawn to certain things that sustain it, there's the potential for it to be drawn and pulled in different directions. This is why we have ancestral religion, to incorporate law and restore balance. The divinity is the anchor. When we align ourselves or tether ourselves to that divinity consistently and deliberately, then things work out fine.
Okay, so the sum and the ba'at are not the same thing.
No, so if you look at the sum, imagine that as the spirit body. Kind of think about the physical body, right? And then you have your organs inside of your physical body. But then you have a surge of fire, life force energy that's filling up your physical body. Or say you have your blood that's circulating all the way throughout your physical body. If you stick yourself in any part of your body, blood is going to pop out. So you have the physical body, you have the organs, but then the blood is bathing and moving through the organs, and the blood carries nutrients to every part of your body. You have the spirit body, which is the sum, and you have the organs, which are the shrines of the deities within the spirit body. But the blood, quote unquote, that's circulating through the spirit body, that's the ba. That's the ba. That's that fiery, golden, radiant energy that's circulating through your spirit body, just like the red blood is circulating through your physical body. The red blood carries nutrients to every part of your body so they can have vitality. In the spirit body, the ba is circulating or flying in the form of a bird, circulating through your spirit body, illuminating your spirit body, empowering your spirit body, and stimulating every shrine or organ, spiritual organ within your spirit body. So the physical body and the blood that's moving through it is like the spirit body and the ba or bayat. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Marase.
Okay. Mirase for the call. And as we published the book, the Okra Complex, the Soul of Akanfo. We're also going to publish a book specifically on the Ba and Bayat. The Okra and Okra Complex. Okra and Okra are the male and female terms for soul in Akan. That's the same as the Ka and the Kayat. So the Obra and the Obra is the same as the Ba and the Bayat, the divine living spirit of the body, of the spirit body, and so forth. And we'll be doing a book just on that as well, just like we did the book on the Ka and the Kayat. We did do a 6-part series on the spiritual anatomy. In one part, we talked about the Ka and the Kayat. Another part, we talked about the Ba, the Bayat. Another part, we talked about the Yaku, Yakut. Another one, we talked about the Ab and the Hati. We also talked about the Sunsum or the Sahu. We also talked about the Kahaibit and the Shuti, the Kahaibit being the aura, the Shuti being the shadow, and so forth. So these different aspects of the spiritual anatomy, we did like a 6-part series on Blog Talk a while back, and it's, of course, on the Blog Talk page. And we also did a 6-part series talking about how to utilize these different aspects of the spiritual anatomy to bring equilibration and order and so forth to our existence. All right, so we have one more call on the phone line. Chiowo number 1768 on the phone line. You had a question or a comment?
What's up, Brother Quasi? Can you hear me?
Yes, what's up?
Yes. Okay, I got a couple of questions. Before I get to my questions, I just wanted to tell you that I truly appreciate all your works and your efforts, because they have helped me a lot and changed my life.
Gracias.
As far as my questions go, I've read the Kuku Tum Tum, and I didn't see in there anything about Joseph, the like where they may have taken from the Kemetic teachings or any of the reliefs on the pyramids, like where did they get Joseph from? I wanted to know if you could tell me about that. And as far as the Patrick clans go, Botham Duerbe, could you tell me which Kemetic and Toro that Botham Duerbe relates to?
Okay, so in fact, somebody else asked that question as well earlier today. So one thing that we touched on in the Okra Complex, and it's right in the middle of the book, and then you'll also see the similar piece in the book Kamet Hina Ntoro, the Black Nation and Divinity. What we touched on was the 7 Matriclan divinities in our Akan culture, and then the 12 Patriclan divinities. And we showed them in ancient Kemet, the 7 Het Heru divinities, and then the 12 attendants to Sa, Ausar, which is Ausar operating through Orion. And then we also showed a form of 7 Het Heru in the form of 7 females, first 7 cows and then the form of 7 females. And then we also showed the 12 male divinities who are holding the rope that's pulling the boat of Ra through the spirit realm, the underworld, and they're standing on the serpent who's called Ka. And what we're going to do is, so we touched on that, and those are those 12 divinities, as well as the 12 attendants to Ausar. So what we're going to do is, which we hadn't done yet, is we're going to dedicate a separate publication to those divinities and show the connections between the Akan names and those 12 divinities and the 7 divinities.
Okay.
We just hadn't gotten to that point yet, but that is coming up because people asked about that, and we just touched on it in one book because it was in the context of talking about patriclans and matriclans, but we didn't go into a whole bunch of detail. But we did show the references so people can actually go to the text and find the names of those deities. But we are gonna go into detail about that. That's one of the next things coming up. So we're gonna go into detail about that.
Can you say real quick?
In fact, I'll email it to you. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, could you repeat real quick what book that was in?
Okay, so 2 different books: the Okra Complex, the Soul of Akanfo.
Okay.
Right around in the middle of the book, you'll see that. And then I use the same graphic, but I added a little bit more information in the book Kemet Hina Ntoro, the Black Nation and Divinity.
All right.
So what I'll do is when I publish that, what I'll probably do before we put the book out, I'll probably just do a short blog article on it, just on the basic parts of it, and just are you on the list? Are you on the list for the Blog Talk email list?
I am.
Okay, so anytime I put something out new, I send it through that. So once we put the article out, maybe within the next week or so, I'll be sending a mass email out, letting people know about that.
All right.
Okay, and now with the Kuku Tuntum. So what we did with the Kuku Tuntum, the reason why we didn't go through every single, like for example, we didn't go into Adam and Eve in the Kuku Tuntum.
Right.
Even though we've touched on them in different broadcasts and so forth, but with the Kuku Tuntum, we wanted to hit the major ones. So
right.
If you hit Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Jesus, if you destroy them, then you destroyed everything. And then, of course, we destroyed Muhammad and Bilal and all of that. So that's the reason we focused on the major ones. We are going to do something in addition where we hit some of the minor ones, Noah and Adam and Eve and Joseph and the brothers and all of that. But when you're looking at the Joseph and his brothers, all that is connected to the so-called 12 signs of the zodiac.
Okay.
That's all they're talking about. So they're just lining them up, pretending like they were actual individuals, and running that whole piece through. So we're going to add that into. That was a secondary piece because, like we said, we wanted to hit the major ones and just destroy the whole foundation of the fake traditions. But then we'll come back
right.
because they've mixed stories. They've mixed stories within the Joseph story from other stories. Joseph being in prison, and Joseph being held up in ancient Kemet, and then eventually becoming a ruler, and first taken into slavery and all that kind of stuff. They've mixed some of the tales that you find, like the tale of Sinhue of ancient Kemet, talking about when he left ancient Kemet and went into the Near East, and he was in the wilderness and all this other stuff. The same story of Moses leaving Kemet and going to the Near East and meeting these different tribes and marrying. So they're mixing a number of different stories, like regular tales, as well as tales from the different deities. And they do the same thing with Joseph, but fundamentally, when they're talking about the 12 signs of the zodiac and the sun, this is what they're talking about with regard to Joseph and his brothers. As we talked about before, at that particular time, there were 12 signs that crossed the ecliptic, and this is where the 12 signs of the zodiac come from. In our culture, before the whites and offspring got a hold of it, before the Greeks and so forth, but because of the precession of the equinoxes, we have mentioned before that there are now 13 constellations that cross the ecliptic. So there are actually 13 quote-unquote signs of the actual astronomical zodiac, and each of them are not 30 days each. One is 7 days, one is 45 days, one is 32 days, and they vary. So we've talked about that as well. But, yes, we are going to have a separate book dealing with the minor personalities, and most likely it'll be Adam, Eve, Noah, Cain and Abel, Jacob, Esau, Joseph, and some of those. We'll just throw those in there, and, like, for example, Jacob and Esau, the whole piece with that, retelling the story of the battle of Heru and Set, Joseph with the 12 signs of the zodiac and so forth. So we'll put all that together as well. That's something upcoming.
Well, one real quick last question of mine. Is there a specific? Can you tell me if there's a specific spiritual force in nature that governs dreams?
Well, there are a few now. A major one, we've talked about this with regard to Set. She's a major divinity that governs dreams. Dreams are like, just like Set giving birth, she governs, birth, the uterus and the birth canal and so forth, and, nurturing the child, gestation and giving birth and nursing and all of that. Going into the dream state is very similar. And she's governing that whole, that birth of that whole experience. So just like we go into the after-death state, you see Ausar and Het regulating the spirit realm, but then, after we make our transition. But during life, during our lifetimes, when we go into the ancestral realm, we're not dying, but we're going into the ancestral realm. We go into the ancestral realm in two major ways during our lifetimes. After death, of course, we go there and we stay there for a while. During our lifetimes, we enter into the ancestral realm in two major ways. One way is through ritual song, ritual dance, ritual, prayer and so forth. People get possessed, or they get transported or propelled into the spirit realm. They communicate with the ancestresses and ancestors and the deity. The other way we make an entrance or a foray into the spirit realm is through the dream state. So even if people are not necessarily as receptive during ritual practice of meditation or ritual song or dance or ritual prayer, and they're not as clairvoyant or clairaudient and so forth, but when everybody at some point typically will have a dream at some point. That's one of the best ways and easiest ways for the Nsamafo to communicate directly with us, the Abosom to communicate directly with us, even if we're not being receptive, throughout the course of our lives, because we're not paying attention and we're not trying to, get on track. So sometimes dreams have to do with previous behaviors, conditionings, things that have been suppressed that rise up, that our spirits, put forward so that we can, address and deal with. But on other occasions, when we're dreaming, we're communicating with our ancestresses and ancestors, communicating with the Abosom, communicating with other people who are dreaming as well, and their spirits are being projected, and we're communicating with them as well. So, but that's one of the best ways for them to communicate with us. And EGUA, Set in her form as EGUA, is governing that whole dream state experience.
So when I dream and I'm communicating with ancestors of mine, then that's something that our Set would govern and rule.
Right.
Okay. All right. Appreciate all of that information. You helped me out a lot. Meta Ase.
Okay. Yani Ase, we appreciate the call. And so yes, that was a good question. We've had a few people ask about the other minor characters in the Bible, and even we put the Kuku Tumtum out a number of years ago. And we've always said that we were going to put out some of those minor characters just to knock them out the way. But when you deal with those principal characters and destroy that whole foundation, as well as with the Quran and the Talmud and so forth and the Bhagavad Gita, the fake characters, then you destroy it all from its foundation. And then, dealing with other minor characters is light work. So, okay, so we're going to end the broadcast here. Again, if you have not had a chance to support the work, please go to the site now to support our fundraising, crowdfunding effort for our film. Any contribution is welcomed. Yerase for those who have contributed. We had a sister contribute last night during the broadcast, right after the broadcast, because she heard us talk about it. and she was able to go right to the site and contribute, and that is very helpful because we can get the film done within 30 days to complete the process that we have started if we can raise the rest of the funds and we can get this film completed and released to the community. But we need the assistance of the community, the 90 people who have contributed, some 2 and 3 and 4 times. We want to spread that out so the thousands of people who appreciate the work, who are subscribing and listening and downloading the books and so forth, 1,000 people contributing $5 will get us there overnight. Will be done. The whole piece will be done. 1,000 people contributing $5, or 500 people contributing $10. Very simple. So again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into the broadcast, and Yebeshi Abio, we will meet again.